Have you ever wondered what happens when judges, who are usually bound by silence and tradition, start raising their voices against the very institution that sits at the top of the judicial pyramid, the Supreme Court of the United States? This is not a hypothetical. In recent months, a number of federal judges have done something almost unthinkable. They spoke openly to reporters about their frustrations with the Supreme Court. These are judges appointed by presidents of both parties, judges who usually avoid any hint of political controversy, judges who typically say the law speaks for itself. And yet, they are now warning that something is wrong, deeply wrong, with the way the Supreme Court has been handling cases involving former President Donald Trump. The frustration comes down to a simple but troubling pattern. Lower courts spend weeks, sometimes months, carefully weighing evidence, hearing arguments, and writing detailed opinions. But when these cases reach the Supreme Court, often through Trump's lawyers demanding emergency relief, the justices have increasingly stepped in through what's known as the shadow docket. On this docket, rulings come quickly, sometimes overnight, and often without full explanation. In fact, the Supreme Court has sided with Trump's administration over 70% of the time when his team has asked for emergency intervention. Now, let's pause here. The shadow docket was never designed to decide sweeping questions of policy. Traditionally, it was reserved for last-minute death penalty appeals or urgent matters where time was literally a matter of life or death. But in Trump's era, it became a shortcut for resolving monumental issues of immigration, trade, and executive power, issues that affect millions of people. And because these rulings are often handed down with little to no written reasoning, lower courts are left in the dark. As one federal judge put it bluntly, "I will follow you if you tell me where to go, but you're not telling me anything." That silence has consequences. It makes it look as if lower courts are incompetent or even biased when they try to rule without clear guidance. It reinforces Trump's political narrative that judges who rule against him are rogue or lawless. And beyond the courtroom, it has made federal judges targets. According to the U.S. Marshals Service, threats against judges have more than doubled in the past few years, rising from 224 in 2021 to 457 in 2023. This isn't just a legal issue, it's a security crisis. Even within the Supreme Court itself, there is dissent. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson has repeatedly criticized her colleagues for granting Trump exceptions and bending the court's own standards. She has suggested that the court is effectively giving one administration a free pass where ordinary litigants would face strict scrutiny. Meanwhile, Justice Neil Gorsuch has scolded lower courts for supposedly defying Supreme Court authority. Even though many judges argue they're simply not given enough clarity to know what authority they're supposed to follow. On the other hand, Justice Amy Coney Barrett has defended the court's legitimacy in public appearances, insisting that the law is not an opinion poll, that the court is not here to enforce its own values, but rather to interpret the Constitution. She's right in principle. But critics argue that when the court issues vague rulings without explanation, especially in politically charged Trump cases, it begins to look less like impartial constitutional interpretation and more like selective intervention. So, what do we really have here? A judiciary caught in a crisis of confidence. Federal judges feel undermined. The Supreme Court, instead of offering clarity, often offers silence. And the American people are left wondering whether the highest court in the land is acting as a neutral arbiter or as a political shield. And that brings us to the ultimate question. Is this just a passing storm in the relationship between lower courts and the Supreme Court, or are we witnessing a deeper transformation, one where the court itself risks being seen not as the guardian of law, but as another political actor in an already fractured democracy? What do you think? Is the Supreme Court still the impartial referee of American justice, or has it become a player in the political game it was meant to stand above?